So we're here with Carl Benjamin, UKIP candidate in the European elections coming up later this month. So Carl, what are your policies and what would you like to achieve for the South West if you're elected as an MEP?
Well, I mean, honestly, there's not a huge amount that MEPs can actually achieve full stop. They're the decision-making body for the Commission. So really anyone who gives you a big list of promises and potential achievements is kind of talking smoke. But I'm more interested in, honestly, the procedure of what's happening at the moment. I think that the media coverage of me has been a decisive kickback against the idea of people who are outside of Westminster politics from having a say in the political life of this country. And I think that the disgusting smears about me have been a part of that. Because, I mean, it's like jokes and, comedic stories I tell have been wildly blown out of proportion, and I think maliciously so, specifically because I'm not really one of their guys. I'm an independent guy who's joined UKIP because they're an independent party who want the independence of the UK, and the Westminster consensus is pretty much against that.
Okay, so the predominant sort of stereotypical image of UKIP is maybe a little older, more white, more male than the average party. What is it that UKIP can offer youth voters in this country?
I don't agree with that stereotype. I think that stereotype's from a previous generation. I mean, you'll notice that the majority of people here who've come out to see us are actually young people. They're not old white men, and even if they were, so what? What's wrong with being an old white man? So
I'm not saying there's anything wrong with
the thing that UKIP can offer is not only being a pro-Brexit party, which I realise that a lot of youth voters are actually disenfranchised in that regard. There's a common narrative and stereotype that suggests that all young people want to remain in the European Union, and that's just not true. But the reason I think that UKIP is more preferable to young people than other parties is because we've got strong stances on the core liberal values that make Britain what it is, and a concern for the promotion of British identity, because you'll notice that we've drawn into a time of kind of identitarian politics. And the British identity has been under attack, and it's not just the identity itself, because what an identity is a collection of values that are expressed in a single sort of feeling. And I think primarily young people these days, really, they have to start thinking about freedom of speech. This is something the European Union obviously claims to support, but doesn't in regards to things like Article 13. This is something that just isn't supported in this country. We've got hate speech laws, we've got various offence categories on the books, and UKIP is the only party who's actually speaking about this and is actually going to push back, so they are free to use social media as they like.
I just want to touch on the local election results from last week.
Mm-hmm.
UKIP did make quite a heavy loss of 145 candidates. Is UKIP as a party sort of dying away?
I don't know, I wouldn't say so. I mean, it made heavy gains in other areas, and there were sort of overall gains, but not enough to gain seats. So I think that it's more that it's becoming sort of more spread out. But I think that Brexit really is kind of it's going to be a very decisive moment in British politics, and it's changing everything. I mean, you'll notice everyone was getting slaughtered at the local elections apart from the pro-Remain lobby, and I suspect that's due to a severe amount of activism by people who are not satisfied with the way that the referendum went. They seem to be particularly energised. But UKIP, I think, it's diversifying and becoming a party that is concerned about many, many different issues that genuinely affect people on the ground that a lot of the other parties simply won't touch.
Well, all the polling for these European elections suggests that the Brexit party is in a commanding lead. Why not join them? There's a better chance to be elected and a better chance to deliver Brexit, so why not join the Brexit party?
Because anyone who sells out their principles for votes is a scoundrel like any other politician. I'm here for the principle of the thing. I'm here because I'm genuinely concerned about the sort of the tenor of Westminster politics dominating political life. They act as if they're at a dinner party, and anyone outside of this is simply not welcome. Well, we still exist. We still live in the real world, and we are still political people. And so this has to be broken. And frankly, the Brexit Party can't do anything about political correctness. They can't do anything about grooming gangs. They can't do anything about free speech. They are only a temporary coalition to achieve Brexit. And if there's one thing we've learned from Nigel Farage being an MEP for 25 years, is that being an MEP will not deliver Brexit.
But what can you do about issues like that if you're attached to a party which isn't necessarily the most popular and you're not getting elected?
Well, isn't that an argument for any party that isn't currently in government?
Well, not necessarily with parties like Labour and the Lib Dems who seem to be on, well, Labour not so much, Labour are a major party and the Lib Dems seem to be a bit more on the rise. So when you have a party of increasing popularity, you can sort of hang on to that. But UKIP seem to be decreasing.
Yeah, but things go up and down in politics. At the moment, we're at a low ebb, but I think that people are seeing what I can only really describe as the tyranny of political correctness in full force. For example, with Danny Baker. This current tweet, there's two ways of looking at it. One is from a classist issue and one is from a racist perspective. And I don't believe that Danny Baker was looking at it from a racial perspective. I believe that he probably didn't think about in his defense, he said he didn't think about the woman's race or potential racial heritage when making the tweet. And I believe him. Why would he? It's really a kind of pathology of the politically correct classes. And I don't think he really understood that.
Well, just touching on political correctness, I do want to talk a little bit about the infamous tweets to Jess Phillips. I'm not going to talk about the legality of them because they seem to be perfectly legal and there's been all sorts of debate about that. But just on a moral level, a lot of people find them morally wrong. And why should people vote for you if you do things which they believe to be morally abhorrent?
Because this was a demonstration. This was a demonstration that the only way that the political establishment would accept principled opposition to what they were saying is if it was shoved in their faces. The only option I had was to violate their moral code. Like you say, it wasn't illegal, and I made sure that it wasn't. But the point of the tweet, I mean, Jess Phillips already had me blocked, so she never saw the tweet anyway. She obviously doesn't follow any of my videos, so she's never seen any of this. So the people who've been putting this in her face are the media, which is precisely what I aim to do. They're in fact... I'm sorry, I'm in the middle of something a second. It's not mine. But this was precisely what the purpose of the tweet was, because now I can sit here and tell you, well, I think that we do need a national debate on, for example, suicide. Why is it affecting men so disproportionately? Why is it young men who so disproportionately kill themselves? Jess Phillips went out of her way to block that debate, and so I'm sorry, if her offence is considered more important than mine, then it's surely just an example of her privilege as an MP.
Well, a lot of your defence of that tweet was that it was a statement of non-intent.
Sure.
But recently you put out a video saying, and whether it was a joke or not, that you...
No. There's no whether it was a joke or not. You're talking about a blooper reel of outtakes that were all jokes. Everything in it was a joke, and so taking a joke seriously is kind of farcical, is it not?
Well, I'm not necessarily taking it seriously, but could people who did take it seriously perceive that as a legitimate threat?
No, I think that's really ridiculous. I think the idea of taking any joke seriously is funny in and of itself. And the joke itself was actually about the media, because they're the ones who are blowing this tweet out of proportion and put it in people's faces. They're the ones who are doing so. I'm not the one putting this in Jess Phillips' face.
Okay, well, UKIP has had some difficulty shaking what some people see as its reputation for maybe being a bit of a racist party.
No, I reject that completely. I don't think the UKIP is absolutely and categorically not a racist party. UKIP is the only party that actively prevents racists from joining. The Labour Party has more racists than UKIP. The Conservative Party has more racists than UKIP. So, I don't need permission to be here, do I? Excuse me. Excuse me. So now this is precisely the sort of thing that we have a problem with, is zealots who decide that it's okay to assault people for having a different political opinion.
Look at what they've just thrown.
Well, I'm certainly not in favour of anyone throwing fish at
Oh yeah, but excuse me, if you'd like to have a dialogue, I'm happy to talk to you about whatever you're upset about, but until you're ready to actually have a talk like an adult and not throw things, then we can't do anything, can we?
Sorry, we are...
Would you like to have a talk?
We are trying to conduct an interview here. Would you mind just for a moment? Okay, well, in light of your comments about then Labour and other parties having more racists than UKIP, can you explain your comments in a YouTube video last year where you used a derogatory racial slur for people, for black people?
It was probably a joke. I have no idea which video you're talking about.
I believe you were addressing the alt-right.
Oh, well, there we go.
And you were saying that they were behaving like white N-words that white people don't behave like.
Yeah.
That does seem like a racist statement.
Why? Is it racist to insult Nazis?
But to say that they are behaving in a sort of non-white way and expecting better behaviour on the basis of their skin colour, therefore implying that non-white people don't behave.
Yeah, but that's their belief.
Yes, but you didn't seem to be necessarily...
Do you think I'm a Nazi?
I don't really have an opinion on that, but
Well, that's the point. I'm not a Nazi. In fact, I consider that to be an ideology foreign to Britain completely. I'm a British liberal.
Okay,
I don't hold any kind of
support
racial politics.
Those,
No, of course
those
not.
comments that you made. Okay.
Listen, right, the whole point behind those comments was that at the time, I was being attacked by these people. Now, they were harassing me, my wife, my children, their schools, things like this. No one would do anything about it, so I had to do something that they would find offensive in order to leave me alone. And the best thing I could think of was repurpose their own rhetoric to use against them, to show them that they are, in fact, worse than the way they portray other people of other races. And you're taking this out of context from a thing you don't understand.
Okay, so you don't seriously believe any of what you said to them? It was an attack on the alt-right?
I don't understand how, calling Nazis mean words is now something prohibited, but this is the thing. This is what the press do, isn't it?
Well, I'm not saying it is.
But you're just following their playlist.
Well, I'm just asking you to clarify if you sincerely hold those beliefs. You said you don't. And
obviously not.
We can move on from there. Another controversial figure who's been linked to UKIP is Tommy Robinson.
Okay.
Do you think it's right that he should have been brought in as an advisor to UKIP and helping formulate their policies when he can't even join UKIP due to his links to the far right?
What difference does that make? Is his advice not good because he had a troubled past?
Well, it's not necessarily the best look for UKIP, a party who's been accused of leaning towards the far right, to bring in...
Oh, can you define far right for me quickly?
Well, he was a member of the British National Party.
Yeah, but they're a Nazi party.
Now a proscribed organisation.
Yeah, but that's a neo-Nazi. The British National Party has roots in neo-Nazism. And I believe that Tommy didn't know that when he joined. He was 20 years old, something like that, when he joined. And he only joined and then left. So, I believe that it was a mistake on his part. So I think Nick Griffin deliberately repackaged their rhetoric in... language that would sound more pleasing and a sort of normal tone for the regular person, without by deliberately covering their neo-Nazi roots. So, I mean, I don't know. I don't see what that's got to do.
Well, also things like the EDL. UKIP rules do state that if you've been a member of the EDL, you can't join UKIP because they're too extreme.
Yeah, well,
he helped set it up.
Yeah.
So he wasn't.
So he's not a member of UKIP, is he?
No, but should he be helping formulate party policy for a party trying to get away from a reputation as leaning towards the extreme right? When actually
well, no, I don't agree that.
Right.
Okay, so I don't agree that the Nazis are the extreme right. I don't agree with that definition.
Well, but that's
right? Because listen. Yeah, I know, but that's the point, isn't it? This is how the subversion of language begins. Like, if you look at every fascist, Mussolini was a socialist for 10 years. He ran a socialist newspaper. Fascism itself, as a political ideology, comes directly out of socialism. It's an open rejection of liberalism. It's an open rejection of socialism as well, of course. And if right wing is liberal politics and left wing is social politics, then the Nazis are not a right-wing party. So sitting there going, they're far right. I mean, when you say far right, I'm thinking Milton Friedman. I'm thinking radical capitalism,
Well, that's economically right-wing, and the Nazis would be seen as right over to the right and up to the authoritarian scale.
I don't agree they're right over to the right either. I think they're a lot more centrist, but a lot more authoritarian. Okay. I mean, that's how they're usually portrayed. But this is the thing. This is the way that the slippery terminology is used. It's like, far right. Well, usually that in America, that would be considered libertarianism. Get off, bird. The cheek of it. Define ideologies, not political compass points, because the political compass points are all arbitrary anyway. Who cares whereabouts?
Why is she saying fish?
I think that she's not a very polite person. Give me political ideologies. If you want to say, I'm a liberal, so I want decentralization, I want limited government, things like this. Ask Tommy what he is, and he'd probably say something very similar.
Okay, well, to rephrase then, the idea of a man who can't join UKIP for being a member of and setting up parties and groups which UKIP consider to be too extreme.
Yeah.
And UKIP has trying to shake a reputation for similar type of extremism. So, should he be involved in making party policy? Does that look good for UKIP?
I don't care how it looks. This is exactly the problem I was talking about. It's like, does it look good? Well, is it effective? What's more useful? Something looking pretty or having a particular function that is actually good for what it's supposed to do? Tommy knows what he's talking about when it comes to the grooming gang scandals, when it comes to prison radicalization, and when it comes to all of the other kind of social ills, because he's lived it. Now you can say, well, he's not perfect, he's made mistakes. Yeah, sure. But that's what I'm trying to say about getting out of the sort of the dinner party atmosphere of Westminster. These politics still exist. The real world still exists. We can't just sit there and assume that everyone who comes to us with a problem is going to be the most perfect, loving, well-groomed, well taken care of person. Some people have had rough lives, and Tommy is actually one of them. You can listen to his Oxford Union speech, and man, if you don't feel something for the way he's been treated, then there's something wrong with you. And what I find amazing is that UKIP's the extreme party. maybe for free speech, maybe to leave the European Union. But look at Labour at the moment. They're run by actual communists. John McDonnell is an open communist who has said he doesn't want Conservatives to be able to leave the House without being harassed. Jeremy Corbyn is actually he's described Winston Churchill as the villain of World War II. These people seem to really dislike Britain as a country, and like McDonnell always says, his job is to overthrow capitalism. Now, if you want to talk about extremism, I would suggest that implementing a socialist state in Britain is a pretty extreme position, and no one ever calls Labour up on that.
Okay, well, to move slightly onwards to UKIP as a party in the leadership, Gerard Bratton is stepping down in June, and that will trigger a leadership contest. Would you stand now that you've gained some acclaim amongst UKIP supporters, or if not, who would you like to see stand for UKIP?
Well, I can't stand because I haven't been in the party for long enough. You have to be in for more than 2 years, I believe. So that's simply not an option. But I think that Gerard is not so much. I thought he was a temporary interim leader while the party was in crisis, and Gerard's brought the party from 17,000 members to over 30,000 now. He's made them a nationally recognised force again, for good or ill. I hope that Gerard stands again because I think that he's done a really good job. I realise that people will say, well, look at the current situation, but the current situation is transitory, as they all are, and the membership is going up, our reach is going up, so I think we should keep on going as we are, because really, what really matters, I think, in all of these sort of things, it really does come down to what Gandhi says. First they ignore you, then they laugh at you, then you win. We really do have principled positions that we are going to advance, and these things are important, and they are genuinely affecting the lives of people, which is why, 50, 60 people have turned up in the middle of the afternoon. These are not problems that are going away, no matter how uncomfortable they might make the Westminster consensus. So I think we'll push on, and I hope that Gerard stands again. I'd vote for him.
Okay, and then just another quick Brexit question. UKIP obviously very much in favour of getting out of the EU, obviously, and have completely rejected the idea of a second referendum.
Completely.
With the deadlock that's going on in Parliament at the moment and the seeming split in the country, would you and maybe UKIP be able to get behind some form of second referendum without the option to remain, simply to give the public several options of ways to leave the EU and give them the option of choosing how to leave?
I personally wouldn't, no, because what this is an attempt by Remainers to subvert the result of the referendum in the first place. The problem here, it really is the fact that the Remainers do not like democracy, and they'll sit there and say, well, we need to have experts come in and tell us how this is done. Exactly. They don't consider themselves to be knowledgeable enough, and you won't find an expert who knows how this is supposed to be done because we're in uncharted territory. What we should be doing is actually taking principled stances on what it is we actually want. And at this point, I think the Remainers have to understand that they are damaging the country by being such, honestly, almost like a fifth column for Europe at this point, doing everything they can to overturn the democratic will of the British people. They have a duty to support Brexit, whether they like it or not. Politicians in Parliament, they have a duty to support Brexit whether they like it or not. And if they can't do that, if they feel it's against their moral convictions, they should resign, and so by-elections be called so people who can do it can be elected.